Alrighty, hey everyone. Actually messed up with the Beyond. I'll never talk about Beyond, but wow, a lot of people are coming. I hope that you feel energized after this coffee break. Okay, yeah. Tough crowd again, no. Okay. How many of you love animations? Or, yeah. Okay, I'll leave. So, yeah, okay. I will start with the same joke. So, in 2019, I have shared this stage amongst other great developers, and I will start with the same joke, because I still feel it's topical, and I'm really flattered to be here in front of you to talk about animations in React Native. Anyway. So my name is Catalin Miron. I'm the developer that actually have built the very first complete application in React Native. Had access to React Native since it was in private mode, and 2 years prior of React experience. I'm a father of 2 beautiful kids, a husband of an amazing wife. I'm also doing YouTube. Unfortunately, I don't have time anymore. I'm also the creator of Animate ReactNative.com. ReactNative.com, it's the platform where you can find premium and customizable collection of ready-to-use React Native animations powered by Reanimated, Moti, Gesture Handler, Math, and Animated API. There are over 107 different animations that are going to save you time while developing applications. It's also a perfect collection, in my opinion, if you want to learn more about animations. So if you like, you can check it out on animatereactnative.com. Most recently, 5 days ago, I have joined 11 Labs, which is a voice cloning or dubbing AI functionality as a mobile lead, where I lead the effort on bringing voice creation into users' pockets, using, of course, React Native. The talk is going to be around Reanimated library from Software Mention, which I believe is by far the most powerful and well-maintained library for animations in React Native. I'll be talking about what's new, what's coming, and what's missing from my perspective. I'll start with this simple topic here. Reanimated 3 was first released a year ago, more than a year ago. And I get this question all the time, hey, does this animation actually work with Reanimated 2? Or does it support Reanimated 3? Well, I would like to show you the diff between V3 and V2. And all in all, the answer to that question is yes, it's actually working. If it's working with Reanimated 3, it's going to work with Reanimated 2. So first of all, Reanimated 3 no longer includes support for the legacy Reanimated 1 API. It's no longer shipping with pre-built binaries for Android. That means that, you need to install some NDKs and more. And it has Fabric support. And of course, lots of other great things. So let me show you one of the most important release. It's the shared element transition, or SET for short, is the transition that will keep in context some elements while performing a navigation transition from a screen to another. Let me show you a quick example of a shared element transition. So we have this list on screen A that's going to render some boxes. And a screen B that's going to render or display the details for the items from screen A. So this is what's going to be shared across those two different screens, right? This box, or the blue box, or the orange box. Well, you get the point. So let's go back to this example. Now let's try to perform a shared element transition while navigating from screen A to screen B. This is how it's going to look like based on the position and the coordinates and the size of the element on the second screen. A shared element transition will keep this element while performing the transition, right? This is powerful because users will avoid context switching, which is really important. And of course, display the rest of the details after the navigation. This shared element transition, of course, is going to work backwards. So going back from screen B to screen A, keeping this hero image visible always on the screen. So it's going to move really nice. Of course, you're not limited to a single element. You can use multiple elements. In this case, I'm using a box and a smaller box. Or you can imagine an image and the text. So yeah, you can move it. And this is how shared element transition is going to work for multiple elements, considering the position and the size on the other side. This is a complex animation and requires a lot of work to be done. But thanks to Reanimated and native stack from React Navigation, this can be done in a single line of code. Let's see how. Creating this animation is just a matter of passing a single prop, and that's a shared transition tag. In this example, I'm using my box 5 because this is the position of the box, and this is how the destination or on the second screen is going to look like, the code. So in this way, we inform basically Reanimated, hey, these elements are going to be part of the navigation transition. So going back to the initial example, we can see that each individual item from both screens share exactly the same unique identifier as a shared transition tag. So yeah, box 8, box 1. And yeah, just by passing that props, everything is going to work like magic. Here is a great example from Kacper using Reanimated, Expo Router, I see you there, Blur View, and Linear Gradient. So he's trying to recreate the iOS home screen, where you have this folder that incorporates multiple widgets. When pressing on the folder, it's going to expand into multiple elements. So a lot of elements are moving while navigating. So you're not limited to a single element. Speaking of Expo Router, if you're living under a rock or went on vacation for 2 months, as I did, you might have missed Expo 49 release. That includes, along many other beautiful
debugging. Let's debug this together. Luckily for you,
Expo Router v2 plus Reanimated 3 support, which means that you cannot use only a powerful file-based routing system, but also you can apply a shared element transition to it. As of today, the latest release of Reanimated is 3.4.0, which includes new features in shared element transition, new APIs, and support for React Native 0.72. In 3.4, we have the long-awaited feature, and that's progress-based shared element transition, plus border radius style attribute support. In this example, Christoph showcased how a progress of a shared element transition plus border radius animation may look like. You see, previously, you could only animate X, Y, width, and height, basically the size and the position of an element. But now, in addition to that, we have border radius as well. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we are going to end up with animating any style attribute, like background color, for example. Reanimated can now detect the system-reduced motion, and you can disable the animations accordingly through use reduce motion hook. For example, instead of applying a slide animation, you can easily fade in, out, or in some cases do not animate at all. Please be mindful that some users might have reduced motion turned on, and some animations might harm them. A new topic and a really cool one is that now Reanimated works on Windows. This is Windows, through React Native Windows, and macOS plus Vision OS, which is mind-blowing. And adding gesture handler plus native React Native screens, you can also perform shared element transitions. Yeah, thanks everyone for supporting this amazing library by Software Mention. So we can give a round of applause to them. Yeah, this is what I want to say anyway. As of 3.4, layout animations arrived on web. So more steps towards bridging the gap between platforms, enhancing both developer experience, but ultimately, and the most important one, user experience. And a new documentation, a new logo, that horse that's running on the UI thread. Not to mention the fundamentals sections that now actually works and are in a better shape thanks to this guy. So thanks so much, Kacper, for bringing this, bringing a new doc to. Anyway, so the great thing about this new documentation tool, besides the new redesign and the fundamentals section, is that you can actually play around with the animations due to Reanimated capability of cross-platform, right? You can play around with the spring, long were the times when you had to guess how to play around with the dumping, stiffness, and so on. So yeah, it's really easy to memo, because you can copy-paste the config afterwards into your project. So this is the documentation website where you can go and check this one. But I really like to learn through the documentation, and this website is too long for me. I cannot remember it. So as a token of appreciation for the entire Reanimated team, I have actually mirrored the documentation on Reanimated 2, if you like the name and you're old school as me, or you can go to reanimated3.com, and it's still the same documentation. So thank you so much. The documentation is amazing, and I really suggest you to go ahead and try it out. Soon, multi-threading, running worklets on the thread or on other threads like background thread or camera thread, as we have seen recently on Twitter. Now, I would like to talk about something that's missing, right? We have support for Mac OS, we have support for Windows, we have support for Vision OS, we have support for anything. Well, you may ask what's actually missing. So there is this component, the Marquee component, the component that have never made it to W3C specification. Reason being, it's a presentation element with a disruptive behavior to reading and difficult to follow. Well, this component that, from time to time you're limited with the spacing, with the amount of space where you can render something. And like these boxes, right? And you need to repeat the content in such a way that will infinitely repeat with a seamless or continuous animation. Or as you can see it on framework.com website where they showcase their clients, right? They are using, again, a Marquee component. Because you're limited with the spacing, instead of going multi-line with the text, you can use a Marquee effect, like in this new sticker example. Or if you're Apple, you can use it into the Apple stock application to display all the saved stocks, showing the name, price, some line graph. You get a point. Well, how this does actually work, it's we first need a viewport and an element inside it, right, that you like to apply at the Marquee. We need to clone this element a number of times in such a way that when the first clone element will move outside of the viewport, we bring it back to the tail. Note that in this case, we haven't cloned it properly, so there might be some glitches. So let's take another approach. Let's clone it 3 times. The effect is going to look like right at the moment. When one element is going to move outside of the viewport, we are going to bring it back to the tail, and because it's going to be outside of the viewport, users may not notice the glitch itself. So it's going to work quite nice. But what is going to happen in case when the element is bigger than the viewport? Well, in that case, we just need to clone it once, but apply the same transition. I'm applying this fancy animation just for you to visualize it, but in reality, it's going to snap directly into place. Another feature of a Marquee component should be the capability of specifying some spacing between those clone elements. It can grow, it can shrink, it can go to 0. Long were the times when I actually open source anything for this community, but I'm really happy to announce that I'm open sourcing a component responsible for creating this Marquee effect. And it's called Animate React Native Marquee. It's available on NPM already. And if you like to see the source code, you can scan the QR code here. Well, you see, this component is powered by Reanimated 3 or 2. Works out of the box with Expo. It's cross-platform, like truly cross-platform. It's working on iOS, Android, web, macOS, and Windows. It's very performant. It's running from 60 to 120 FPS based on the device capabilities. Works with any component and is written in TypeScript. And this is how it's going to look like. The first example, I have a text that's longer than the viewport, so I need to clone it just once. Some examples have shorter text than the viewport, and I need to clone it multiple times. There are boxes as well. There are other boxes. Anyway, you get the point. But you can also create this pharmacy scroller, news ticker. You can use basically a tablet or a screen. Place it in the background, start recording your awesome YouTube video or whatever platform you're using, and display some stats. Like, for example, here is saying, go to reactnative.com, use RNU30 to get 30% off the regular price. Anyway, this is how it's going to look like. It's a really simple component. You just import Marquee, and you can specify the spacing and the speed. And underneath, this is using use frame callback to change the position, basically, from left to right. Underneath, this component relies on this hook, and it's going to be called every frame. So yeah, another useful hook from Reanimated. Another component that I believe is kind of like missing is the Stagger component, or Stagger orchestrator. It's quite hard, to nail a Stagger animation, especially if you have multiple elements. So Stagger basically offsets the starting time of each element animation. So you see, instead of animating a group of items all at once, we can recreate the same effect by staggering the animation. When each item's animation is incrementally delayed, they appear as individuals, but still move collectively as a whole. The result is captivating and feels more true to life. Like, for example, these running through birds. They're not going to move suddenly all together, right? They have a stagger animation. So it's a natural way of thinking about those things. So again, the same animation, the same thing. I'm really proud to announce that, again, I am open sourcing a component. Thank you. Anyway, it's called Animate React Native Stagger. You can also find the source code. It's available on NPM for a couple of days now. And this component, it's also powered by Reanimated 3, works with Expo, it's cross-platform, iOS, Android, web, macOS, Windows. It's performant 60 to 120 FPS, works again with any component, and is written in TypeScript. A little asterisk on the web. Due to layout animations, it requires 3.4 to run on web. This is how it's going to look like. I have here views, I have images, I have text. I have another image or SVG URLs because of Expo image. Thanks to Tomasz for Expo image library. Thank you very much. I was rendering an SVG from a URL, in case that wasn't obvious. So how it's working? Well, you import Stagger from Stagger. This component accepts multiple props. So the Stagger in milliseconds, the duration between each individual delay, the animation for entering and exiting The layout animation for entering and exiting, it can be keyframes, it can be a custom layout animation, or you can use the pre-built layout animations from Reanimated. Just to be clear here, entering means mounting, exiting means unmounting. So if you are going to toggle those, you can apply a layout animation, and it's going to perform an animation. You can also specify an exit or enter direction. One stands from top to bottom, -1 from bottom to top. It's useful to set those directions for the animation. For example, you have a menu. You would like to enter from top to bottom, and you want to exit the opposite, right? From bottom to top. This is the reverse way or normal way of thinking. Last but not least, some initial delays for entering and exiting. If you want to be up to date with all the components or libraries that I'm going to eventually open source more, and you like performant animations, feel free to follow animatereactnative.com on GitHub. Yeah, you can scan the QR. It's free, anyway. If you want to save time and learn animations, don't forget to check animatereactnative.com. And also, you can use RNEU30 to get 30% to both individual and team license pricing. I also like to thank to whoever bought a license from this audience. It means a lot. And I would like to say thanks to Cedric, who purchased the first license. Thank you very much for supporting me. That was it from me, and thank you. You can find more details there. Yeah, have a great one.